Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my show Camera Tuesday. In today's episode, we're gonna take a closer look at Fujifilm X-T30. So let's dive right into it. Now first you have to understand what is this camera. Now this is what we classify as a starter camera. This is basically what Fujifilm is trying to do, is basically make you buy your first Fujifilm camera. Basically, if you want to get into photography and you don't have a boatload of money and you are not sure about it, this sort of camera is what we classify as a starter camera. Basically, you buy this and you get into photography. Now it's a small camera. It's a very small camera. If you have a big hand, it will literally fit in your hand. So it's a very small camera and it's easy to use. That's the whole point of Fujifilm. It's very easy to use and it's low cost. It's only $900, basically same cost as Sony A6400. So this is a starter camera from Fuji, very recently released. So why the heck you should buy Fuji versus, let's say, Sony, Nikon and Canon, or even Panasonic? Now you have to understand, Fujifilm is one of those few camera company that is limited to one sensor format, which is APS-C. So everything Fujifilm can do does come to basically APS-C system. Now what does that translate to? Think of it this way: if Sony wants to make a very great APS-C camera, it would be expensive, because nowadays sensor itself is not the most expensive part. Other surrounding electronics are very expensive, like memory chips, processor chip, LCD screen, electronic viewfinder screen, buttons, controls, dials, battery. These things are very expensive, and in early days that was not the case, but now it is. So in this scenario, Sony is kind of limited. If they want to give you latest and greatest in APS-C, the problem would be the cost will be too high. So let's say they tried to do that and they give you a very great let's say APS-C camera, but it's now $2,000. Then people will ask, why the hell should I spend $2,000 and buy a APS-C versus $2,000 full frame from Sony itself? So this creates a paradox. That's why from Sony, Nikon and Canon, none of these companies put their their best of the best of the best into APS-C. So sometimes they do release very good cameras, but none of them are like latest and greatest in autofocus technology, latest and greatest in video features. So sometimes you can find unique things here and there, but overall if you look at it, you will never get the best Nikon has to offer in APS-C, best Canon has to offer in APS-C, best Sony has to offer in APS-C. For this reason, this is the unique part about Fujifilm, that they will give you the best Fujifilm can do, and they only make one another format, which is a medium format camera. And if you're worried about it, don't worry too much about it, simply because that camera is what we classify as low volume. Basically, they are not meant to sell millions of them. So each camera is very expensive, and they're very now classified as expensive is a relative term, because the cheapest you can find is $10,000 camera. Now compared to other medium format, that those go up to $40,000 to $50,000 camera. I'm not talking movie camera, I'm talking still camera. So from their point of view, it's very cheap. And Fujifilm has two independent branches right now. One they have X sensor and one they have GFX sensor. So do not worry about it. So at this point, for all intents and purpose, Fujifilm is APS-C lost. So Fujifilm will put the latest and greatest they can do in APS-C. You will be never limited by like, oh, Fuji can do this, but they are only doing it for GFX. That's not gonna happen. Now, because Fujifilm is so focused on this, compared to every other manufacturer, Fujifilm has really good lens selection, very good lens selection. They have already built it over the course of years. So that gives you a very good, rich lens selection right now. Like if you just want to go to a shop, you will find better quality APS-C lens in Fuji than any other manufacturer. And this is their unique selling point. This is the reason why Fujifilm is still hanging on. Is basically they give you a lot of manual control, because if you are familiar with old film camera, everything used to have its own dial. You wanted to change, let's say, shutter speed, you had a dial. You wanted to change exposure compensation, you had a dial. These sort of things some people miss. Now of course, let's say you don't miss it, this won't be a good thing for you. Heck, this will be a harassment, basically a hassle for you. But let's say in simple scenario, you like this sort of thing, you want to experience what it's like to change aperture directly. These lenses generally have their aperture ring control outside. You can directly change it. Old Nikon used to have it, old Canon used to have it, but they have removed it for sake of faster camera lenses. These on the other hand is completely manual. You can enjoy that manual feel. So some people seek that. Some people is like, oh, I want that manual feel, I want to enjoy photography, I just don't want to be like, okay, this is a pointing my camera and pressing a button. Some people enjoy that. So if you are one of those, Fujifilm is the only option you have. and they have uniqueness to it. Right now, if I give you a Nikon versus Canon, and if I remove the logo, you will not be able to tell them apart. Like, of course you will be able to, like, if you know that, but both of them are black boxes. If I give you Sony, yeah, it just does not have that viewfinder hump, but it's still a black box. So, but in Fuji actually put some effort and design language into their camera, so you can actually carry this in public and people will be like, oh, that's nice, because it's completely different compared to all these three manufacturers. So that's their unique selling point. If you look into it, like, if this is a thing that matters to you, this Fujifilm is the only option you have. Then we come to the pro aspect of X-T30. What are the pro aspects? First, the sensor is external sensor. Now that does not make too much of a difference. However, this is a new sensor design that allows for faster readout. What does that mean? Less rolling shutter. That will directly translate to, if you do what we classify as silent shooting, basically you will not have a shutter going up and down. This will give you much better output than any other APS-C in the market at this point in time. So that is very tangible benefit. So let's say you want to do, let's say you are in a wedding scenario or inside a church and you want to do what we classify as silent shooting, and you will not have your shutter going up and down, khatang. This will give you a much better output, and you can move around also. So those are real benefits that will actually translate into good photographs. Then we come to a very interesting aspect. It has no crop in 4K. Now, of course, Canon is infamous for cropping, even though Sony also does it, but be mindful, Sony does a little bit. Now, in Sony APS-C, they still do little bit. Here, there is no little bit. Now, that is very crucial. Let's say you went out for, let's say, some grand tour and you saw a building and you're like, dude, this is a good building, I want to capture a video of it. Awesome. You went into your video mode, you activate 4K and you're like, hey, wait a minute, why it's cropped? Now, to uncrop it, all you have to do is buy a new lens, but you may not have it, or you may not be carrying it with you. That really translates to a lot, and especially on the wide end. Not that much on tele end, but on a wide end, this does make a difference. Every millimeter especially in wide, makes a very dramatic difference. So, difference between a 20mm lens versus 18mm is ginormous. So that's a very good thing. Now, this is another unique selling point of Fujifilm, is that you take a photo, the JPEG that flat out comes out of your camera, it's undeniably better than the rest. Yeah, undeniably, the JPEG that comes out of a Fujifilm cameras are really, really good. Why? Because Fujifilm is much more experienced than any other company in making films. Fujifilm used to make actual film rolls, and they were the second competitor to basically Kodak. So they actually understand color much better than any other company. So that does translate into if they give you an option, let's say monochrome, they actually know how a good monochrome, because they know how a film camera is supposed to look, they can give you that feel. So if you are just like, hey, I want to just shoot some photo and share it on Instagram, this will tangibly give you a much better experience of enjoying this, because you can just like JPEG, transfer, done, go home. That's awesome with this. Now, it also has mic in using 2.5mm jack, and it has USB-C, which they are using wisely, because you can charge it, you can transfer data with using this, and you can use USB-C headphones. Now, if you don't have USB-C headphone, you can also buy a cheap dongle. So that's awesome, and it has joystick. Now, this is a tangibly good feature, because if you are doing any sort of photography where you want to manually control the autofocus point, basically the block green box that you have, this is the best option there is. Touchscreen does not even help. Nothing helps but other than this. Basically, you have to have a thumbstick to quickly change it. Like, if you have the luxury of time, it does not make that much of a difference. But if you are just looking at it and you're like, I want to focus on this, I don't care like there's somebody interesting there or not, I want to do that, this will really help you. This is a tangibly good basically option to have in a $900 camera. This is really good. So these are the pro. Then question becomes, how does it compare against A6400? Now, you can check my full video detail about A6400 here, but you have to understand, flat out, this has better autofocus. Now, when I say this has better autofocus, does not mean that X-T30 misses autofocus. It simply translates to, if let's say you took 100 photo, X-T30 will barely can give you 80 photos that are in good focus, while Sony can give you 90. Nobody reaches 100%. So that really translates to a very good hit rate. On top of that, Sony from day one making lenses that are very, very fast. So that also translates into another thing. So let's say you're doing this, quickly doing this, Sony will give you a better result, because Sony lenses, first, native mount lenses are very fast. Now, the latest and greatest of this is Sony's G Master series F30 135mm lenses, which is a prime lens, and it's undeniably horrifyingly fast. Like, people are surprised how fast it is. Like, nothing, neither from Canon nor from Nikon, anything comes even close to how fast that lens is. Now, Is Fuji lenses are slow? Yes, reliably, because the motor system they are using in their lenses are old generation. So you have to wait for Fuji to update their whole lens lineup before you get really fast autofocus. Now, what does that mean for you? Basically, in simple sense, if you are doing a lot of random pointings, you will find Sony to be much faster. Now, if you have the luxury of time, it would not make a difference. Flip up screen. For some reason, even though Fujifilm themselves released in 2018 X-T100, which is a cheaper camera, has a flip out screen, does not have flip out screen in X-T30 for some reason. That is tangibly, I do not understand it. Like Sony has flip up screen. Now it's better than not having a flip up screen, but it's not as good as side screen. But okay, it has something. Now, if this is important for you for selfie reasons, you have to buy this. You cannot buy Fuji. On top of that, now you have to understand, in video world there was a very weird thing that European Union did, is that they're like, okay, if your camera can record more than 30 minutes, this will be classified as a video camera and you're gonna pay higher tax because it's a video camera. To avoid paying higher taxes for basically products, company decided to cap video limit to 29.59 seconds. Now that's worked out well so far. However, in 2019 European Union removed that tax limitation. The first company to utilize is Sony. So at this point in time, you can buy a Sony camera that will record as long as memory card is there, as long as there is battery in there, and as long as it's not overheated. Now then you might be saying, okay, what's the point if it overheats after 30 minutes? No, it does overheat after like 1.5 hours. People have successfully, like if you are in a cold room, it will go up to 2 hours. So that's a very long time for continuous, even live broadcast you can do on this. So that's a very good thing. But in Fuji, they went even down before from like 30 minutes. They went to 10 minutes. If you're doing 4K, you only get 10 minutes, and if you do basically full HD recording, you can only go up to 15 minutes. That is really strange. The best way I can figure out why this is happening is simply because they are using an old file system, which was like FAT file system, which is limited to 4 GB file. So you will only get one 4 GB file. Now I'm really hoping this is changed in firmware or something else, because this is really stupid. Like 10 minutes and 15 minutes, at least I can understand in 4K, no problem. Okay, in 4K you said, but in full HD, that's just sad. Now again, let's say you change your mind and you want to like, hey, I want to go to full frame. Sony allows you that option. Fujifilm does not. Right now you can buy A6400 and you can buy a full frame lens. Of course they are big and bulky, but again, you need to have big and bulky lenses for good image quality. Like there is no physics denying about it. So if you see people like, oh no, you can get a small lens and get good image quality, yes, undeniably so, but smaller lens will undeniably suffer from vignetting, it will suffer from chromatic aberration, it will suffer from fringings. Those things happen. To compensate for that, people make big lenses. The engineers that are making big lenses, they are not stupid. They know you have to have big lenses, and that's why we make telescopes that are like freaking 100 meters long. So you have to have big lenses. So let's say you right now you bought a full frame lens and you put it on this Sony. You can enjoy it. You can like really keep it working for let's say 2-3 years, and then you're like, okay, now I have another money for full frame upgrade. Awesome. Your lenses won't be thrown out. That is amazing. That can be done with Nikon, that can be done with Canon, that can be done with Sony. It cannot be done with Fuji. And not to mention, Fuji GFX lenses are on a whole different level. And on top of that, let's say you are okay with APS-C. You're like, I thoroughly know myself, I'm gonna be happy with APS-C. There is no third-party lens support. This is crucial aspect. Basically, you can go to Sigma and be like, okay, hey, I want APS-C lens. Sigma is gonna help you. You want to go Tamron, I want APS-C lens. Sony can help you with that, and Sony will accept it. You go to Fujifilm, there is no third-party support. Maybe you can find one or two manufacturer that makes few lenses, and because they are making few lenses, those lenses are very expensive. So you do not have a very good support of third-party lenses, and many people flat out say you don't have any support. So this is crucial. For this reason, if these things make sense to you, go with Sony. If does not, like if you are okay with Fujifilm, because Fujifilm does give you certain USP that is not present to all three manufacturers. If you're okay with that, go with that. If you're not, use this. So this was my presentation on Fujifilm X-T30. I hope you liked it, learned from it. In that case, please leave a like and click the ads that are shown in this video. That will directly help me. If you didn't like it, press dislike. I would urge you to press it twice to show me your extra disappointment, and please leave a comment because I reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.